Let's explore autistic history and the Autism Wars. This is part 85 of a series. So there is so much activity happening in this era of the rise of parent-founded autism organizations. They are in legislation, they are in our healthcare, they are in our education system, they are in research for autism, they are in everything possible, and they're promoting the autism therapies they believe in and the doctors that they believe in and the goals and agendas that they believe in. And they do this at the expense of autistic voice. So when you read these articles or you see these news pieces coming out and there is zero being mentioned by an autistic person in there, it's not because we don't exist, and it's not because they don't know we exist. This Cure Autism Now shows that they know we exist in a big way. It is not a secret that we exist, but he sure is making it a mystery for us. Cure Autism Now was really instrumental in weaponizing non-autistics against autistics in this civil rights movement, in this battle to be heard. And we were only wanted if we were silent or compliant. And I don't know, compliance just doesn't seem to be something that I do naturally just because someone wants me to. And you want me to be compliant about my civil rights and the direction of this? No. No. So, we've heard from other autistics in this era speaking to, Laura Tisnock, about them creating the prejudices that we're going to have to dismantle, or we're going to have to live and then dismantle. And that's exactly what's happened all these decades later. You still see it everywhere. And this attitude that was generated back then towards autistics is just as vicious today. They do not want us involved in this because our agendas for better quality of life and support is vastly different than the agendas they have for cure and recovery. And the cure is impossible, it doesn't exist, but it's a carrot of hope that they keep continuing to dangle in front of parents. And it's a false hope, but it makes a lot of money. So I'm going to read another article that shows this push. So let's remember, 99 or 98, ABA is legitimized and accepted by the U.S. Surgeon General, and then the American Academy of Pediatrics, I think, is next. And so, yeah, but you can hear it. This is articles from December 21st, 1997, but you can see that push in this article and other marketing. Hopefully now that I've illustrated what it is they're doing. These aren't just parents sharing their stories. These are parents with a lot invested going forward in the Autism Wars. So this particular article is titled Perspective on Autism. The subhead is The Gift of Hope. Add a bonus, love. Research and innovative therapies allow little Frankie to take a giant step into normal kindergarten. And this is by Frank Del Olmo, who is an assistant to the editor of the Times and a regular columnist. It says here, a colleague dropped by my office last week for a sobering conversation. One I have become sadly accustomed to having in the 3 years since my 5-year-old son Frankie was diagnosed as having infantile autism. My colleague once worked as a correspondent in London and had just heard from friends there who were devastated at having received a similar diagnosis for their 2-year-old boy. Would I be willing to talk with his friends to offer advice from my own experience, he asked. And what precisely is autism? As always, I said yes to the former question and did my best to answer the latter. Autism is a neurological disorder, the third most common developmental disability among children, after mental retardation and cerebral palsy. The brains of people with autism are wired differently, so sensory stimuli, light, sound, touch, affect them differently. Scent, vibrations, there's so much more to that. But yeah, affect them differently. In most cases, their reactions interfere with learning. In extreme cases, they interfere with the ability to function normally in society. I first wrote about Frankie's autism 2 Christmas seasons ago with the same sense of fear and loss that my colleagues' friends in London must feel. A healthy, happy child who had developed normally for 2 years suddenly stopped speaking, withdrew from social contact, and lapsed into increasingly bizarre behaviors. It took a better part of a year for us to get a definitive diagnosis. And even then, we were warned by some of the top specialists in the field that there is no cure for autism and that Frankie would face lifelong challenges. But in time, we also learned from other parents with similar experiences, particularly a wonderful Los Angeles couple named John Shaystack and Portia Iverson, that autism is treatable. Movie director parents took a college class and launched an autism organization, are now the autism experts. Okay. Just as important, we learned that biomedical research, especially on how the brain can be taught to compensate for damage or slow development, is finding effective new treatments for autism and may eventually discover a cure. You see these folks thinking a cure, if it's found, it's going to help their child that's already born? That's why Frankie's mother, Magdalena, and I now wage a two-front war against autism. On the public side, we have tried to help the organization that Shaystack and Iverson founded, Cure Autism Now, raise awareness of the need for more biomedical research into autism. On the personal side, we have explored a variety of treatments that have been shown to help some children with autism to determine whether they might be useful for Frankie. He has so far responded well to auditory training to help him learn to distinguish sounds more clearly, music therapy, which helps him exercise those parts of the brain that control conceptual thinking, and sensory integrated therapy, which has helped him coordinate his physical movements, climbing, jumping, and even walking normally. Get ready for it. Here it comes. The core of our son's treatment, a behavior modification program pioneered by Dr. Ivar Lovaas at UCLA, continues to be successful. For the last year and a half, Frankie has spent 40 hours a week being tutored by Lovaas Institute therapists. They've taught him to count, spell, draw, and respond appropriately to playmates and teachers. He's made such rapid progress that in September, the school district in which we lived agreed to place him in a mainstream kindergarten class. There he is accompanied by a shadow therapist who intervenes when and if Frankie needs help. It's an important experiment, for if children with autism can be mainstreamed, it will eventually reduce the cost of educating them and perhaps even reduce their social isolation by getting them used to interacting with non-disabled peers. I will share the second half of this article with you in the next video. Oh goodness, so we're learning more about autistic history. Thank you for joining me, and I'll